Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are going to do something extra this week. See, I actually made a goof. Earlier in this week, I believe it was Tuesday, we checked out a track from Yes called Sound Chaser. That actually wasn't the song I was supposed to check out that day. We were supposed to check out Roundabout. And so, I'm going to make up for that. We're going to check out Roundabout now. So we're going to get 6 songs for this theme, and 2 of them are going to be from Yes. That's how that works. Alright, let's dive into this. This comes off of their Fragile album, which came out in 1971, so actually a couple of years before Relayer, which is where Sound Chaser came. Why couldn't I think of that? So Sound Chaser came from. Let's dive into this, and let's see what Yes is doing for Roundabout. Hey, wait, I've heard this before.
I'll be the roundabout. The words will make you out and out and spend the day your way. Call it morning, driving through the sun and in and out the valley.
Super funky. I love this bass line. Fun little ornamental bits. I didn't recognize that Spanish guitar inspired intro, but this verse is very familiar to me.
Call it morning, driving through the sun and in and out the valley. In and around the lake. Mountains come out of the sky. They stand
Yeah.
one mile over, we'll be there and we'll see you.
Someone let me know if this has been in a film somewhere.
24 miles over, we'll see. I'll be there with you.
Yeah.
I will remember you. Your silhouette will charge the view of distant atmosphere. Call it morning, driving through the sound and even in the valley. In and around the lake. Mountains come out of the sky. They stand there.
Yeah, dude, the drum work is simple, but it's so effective.
One mile over, we'll be there.
A little bit of syncopation here and there, mostly accenting the downbeat, but kind of playing around with that too. Their harmonies are always good though. cowbell over here? A lot of cyclical energy in here. The section isn't developing anywhere, but it continues to build intensity. When I say it's not going anywhere, I just mean like harmonically it's set where it is. The vocal melody, the chord progression, none of it really feel like it's directing anywhere. It continues to loop back in on itself. And so we have those layers coming in. That adds intensity to it. But harmonically, it's like, it just wants to stay where it is. That's what I meant when I said that. I'm bringing back some of the guitar work from the intro. I like the expansiveness of the... yeah, the synth over there. It's close to arpeggios. But shaping out something rather expansive, which is cool to bring us into this sort of a funky blues rock thing. The call and response on those trills. Dude, this bass line though, I want to learn this. Yeah, dude, the layered approach to this is really well done. I think that's what we're going to touch on first. The syncopated backup vocals. Very cool. Still a couple seconds left though. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Y'all know how it is. Alright, so yeah, like I said, I want to start with the way that they layer everything. The verse and the chorus are both written kind of similarly, or at least they have the same foundation of roles, I should say, where each instrument is designed to do a specific thing within the larger whole. And so while I would say that there's a clear line between what is the verse and what is the chorus, they're both very similar to me, at least in how they're made. And we create this with a strong backbone accent. The snare on the drums, the snare and the hi-hat give us quarter note hits. We don't get an accent on the snare on every single beat, but we get them on most of them, and the beats that we don't get them, we have the hi-hats there to still give us that pulse even without the accent to it. There are a couple of syncopated parts where we like ba 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 da ba, a little bit of bite, a little bit of bounciness to it. But for the most part, the drums are there to give us that beat in the back. There really isn't a lot of flourish to the drum part in this, but it doesn't have to because there's so much rhythmic information elsewhere that the drums really they need to present that main pulse to the song so that all the other syncopation can feel syncopated. The whole idea of syncopation is that it's rhythmic ideas against the core pulse. And so the core pulse needs to be presented somewhere, and that's the drummer's job. Then we have the bass and the guitar. These two instruments are super funky. We get some wild syncopated ideas out of these. The bass has a fantastic tone. The bass also doesn't just play one note and give us this rhythmic information. It also has walking bass line, so it gives us chordal or harmonic information as well. And I just love listening to the bass. It has the coolest licks, and of course, it's syncopated against what the drummer is playing too. So just in and of these two instruments right here, the rhythm section, if this were a jazz track, and that's going to come up later, the fact that I'm bringing up jazz tropes right here, but this rhythm section right here is just phenomenal. You could build so many songs just off of what the bassist and drummer are doing right here. And yeah, it's what creates so much of the rigid rhythmic ideas. Like it's because of these two instruments, and it is the heartbeat to the entire song, and it's just phenomenal. Now then we have the guitarist off on the left. They're mostly playing these chords and vamping rhythms off of it. Just kind of sticking with that chord and adding some syncopation to the whole mix, creating another layer of rhythmic information alongside what the bass is doing and that core information that the drums are presenting us. And like I said, the drums give us a little bit of syncopation too. There's just not a key element of what they're doing. It's not a core part of their task. And these three instruments are giving us harmony, rhythm, and in a sense, melody. We do have that really cool bass riff going on. They're kind of presenting everything in the song. There's still two more instruments though. We have synthesizer. A couple of them actually. There's one that pops up on both sides equally. These are usually more flourishy. We see them at the end of 8-bar phrases, and they kind of lead us back into the repetition or lead us into the next idea. But then we also have the right panned organ. This is going off most of the time, and what I find interesting about this is it kind of does exactly what the guitar is doing over on the left. It's doing its own rhythmic vamping. It's creating more syncopation on top of everything. This is why the song grooves as hard as it does. Every single instrument is partaking in rhythmic information, and all of them are playing against the really strong backbeat, not backbeat, the backbone of the snare. I think it's why the snare being as loud as it is works. Usually I'd call that out in a song. And I do think it's maybe a tad bit too loud, but it's so important to know where that core pulse is for everything else to click in and make sense that I'm willing to ignore it. This is the 2024 remaster. It's possible that maybe one of the other remasters or maybe the original didn't have the snare as loud as it was in here. As usual, when it comes to remasters, especially when it comes to, pretty much anytime we check out something from multiple decades ago, I don't want to comment too much about production because, one, production tropes and techniques and common practices were totally different than modern music, but also because there's so many interpretations of what the song was supposed to sound like over the years with so many remasters that it really becomes a subjective thing, which remaster, or I guess which master you enjoy the most, and which one you find to be the most authentic to the vision of the artists. But like I said, I'm willing to overlook the snare just because it is so integral to getting the groove everywhere else. It's what makes the song the song. Now, on top of all this, we have the vocals, and these are also kind of groovy, a bit of syncopation to them, frequently jumping from downbeats to offbeats just to create a little bit of rhythmic groove within the vocals themselves. The entire song's just super funky, and everybody plays around with this, but I don't think the rhythmic element is as important in the lead vocals as it is everywhere else. And it allows every instrument to sort of dance between two ideas. Everything has their fingers in the rhythmic pie, but the instruments are also providing melody, they're also providing riffs, they're also providing harmony, and everything except the drums, of course, which are primarily rhythmic. And I think that's awesome. There is no, hey, you're just playing rhythm, you're just playing chords, you're just playing a melody. No, everything is participating in multiple aspects, and I think it's what makes this song stand out as much as it does. I mean, like I said, I didn't even know this was a Yes song. I don't even know that I've heard all of this, but I've heard that verse somewhere in the 30 some odd years I've been alive. And as soon as that verse came in, like it was as soon as the bass came in, I was like, wait, I've heard this. That's how, I don't know. What's the word I want? I don't know. It's going to irritate me though, because I don't know what that word is. But, all right, you like I said, listening to it, everything just clicks so well, and I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that there is no single roles in here, and it's what elevates the song. Now, we get some verse, we get some chorus, we get some verse, we get some chorus. There's some really great harmonies in here. I love the counterpoint in some of the places. I think it's the organ picks up a counterpoint to the vocals at one point. Everything's pretty good here. And then the bridge happens. And I'm really glad we had a Yes track earlier this week where I could have read this comment, but also because I got to appreciate that song for its oddities. I came away from that track really enjoying what they're doing from an artistic vision. But I think if we had these reversed, and I checked Roundabout first and then Sound Chaser second, I would have been more critical on Roundabout. The comment, I believe, was from Prog Pair, and they had mentioned that Sound Chaser can get a bit jammy at times, and that Yes as a band can get a bit jammy at times. And it was really important for me to read that, because I think I forgot that. We haven't checked out Yes, it feels like, in a really long time. Unlike King Crimson, who continues to pop up, and Genesis we see a little bit of here and there. I feel like Yes started out very popular in the requests and sort of dwindled over time. And so I kind of forgot that Yes is very heavily influenced by jazz structure in a way that some of their contemporaries weren't, where other bands may have taken a jazzy approach to rock. Yes embodies blues in their creation. And so it does come across as kind of jammy, but I think the other way to perceive it is Yes likes to include what feels like, to me anyways, improvised solo sections. And I have been kind of critical on Yes in the past that while I find these sections to be technically impressive, and even here I found them to be technically impressive too, that I always find them to be disjointed from the rest of the song, and they never really make much sense to me. And honestly, I feel the same way about the bridge here. They kept the right atmosphere, but it just sort of meanders for a while. It doesn't feel as disconnected as it feels more like filler to the track. But this is where the jazz part comes in. This is a very funky song with a lot of blues elements in it. I love that combination of jazz and blues infused with the sound of rock, and it all comes together very well. But the section kind of dwindles or meanders. Again, I'm going to use that word. But here's what's important, right? It is jazzy, but I would actually argue that it ventures more into being jazz than simply being jazzy. Jazz music I listen to very differently from everything else. Especially rock, I expect a story to be told cohesive from start to finish as everything is pre-composed. With jazz, the A section is kind of like a frame story. It's how you get into the meat of the song. You have to understand the context of it to get the true meaning of the song, which is the improvisation. It's the stories these musicians want to tell right now. The improv solos, they're in the same key, and sometimes they might borrow melodic motifs from the pre-composed A section, but they don't have to. If the, if the musician feels like doing their own thing, they certainly can. And so, despite some of the solos in jazz being very disconnected from the A section, I don't dislike the lack of cohesion. I just have a very different approach to listening to jazz. And, halfway through the bridge, I was like, this is fine, this is great, I'm enjoying it, but it's kind of padding out the song. The pacing's kind of been lost. And I was like, wait a second. And I remembered that comment from Prog Pair earlier this week. And I was like, no. This is their jam session. This is not to be understood as part of the song's narrative proper. This is just an exploration of the sound. This is a solo section, and so I should take it as such. And I started just to listen to these almost as isolated vignettes, almost as a sort of anthology, a set of an anthology of stories, musical stories within a larger framework. And from that perspective, I came around to enjoying it quite a bit more. And I think you might have even seen that where I was getting into the bridge, the solos, more towards the end of the section than the beginning. At least I feel like I was doing that. I don't usually pay attention to my body language during reactions. I'm in my head. I'm honestly, I forget I'm in a room. I forget there's lights on. I'm just really enjoying it. And so, that's how I came around to the bridge. And so, from one perspective, do I like the bridge? No, not really. I do feel like it pads out the song in a bit, and some of the solos I think are a little weaker than others, and even just some of the ideas in general. It's not all solos. There's a guitar duet in there as well, which has to be pre-composed because they're harmonizing the exact same line with each other. They know what they're playing, and they're not psychic, so it's not all solos. But I do feel like some of the sections click, I think, a little better, and maybe some of the sections should have been cut out if they were concerned about pacing, but they're not. They just wanted to write a little jammy section for some people to put their own melodies on top of this atmosphere and chord progression that they've crafted. And from that perspective, I do really enjoy it as its own self-contained idea. And I think that's interesting. It's almost as if you write a foundation and part of it you want to tell this story, and that's the verse and the chorus, but the others you just want to jam out to it. You just wrote this cool atmosphere. Your rhythm section's killing it. Why wouldn't you want a solo on top of that, right? And so the song almost feels as if it's in two parts to me, the jam and the pre-composed. It's kind of tough viewing the song simultaneously through two lenses, but I think I come away from it with a much greater appreciation when I do that. And I think that's about going to wrap this up. There's still praise to go around. The guitar work is infectious. I still love the bass from start to finish. There's some cool organ solos in there, but I think my reaction, my grooving throughout the reaction, should tell enough about how much I enjoyed the musicianship of this song. And other than the musicianship that happens in the bridge, most of the rest of it I've already described. The verse and chorus are very similar in structure and composition. So let me hit some lyrics on this. I'm kind of curious why it's called Roundabout, but let's find out. Alright, there's a couple of cool things going on in here, but I'm not sure I understand the lyrics in totality. There's a repeated phrase, says, I'll be the roundabout, the words will make you out and out. Part of me wonders if there's some, I don't know, it could just be old language and different phrases or maybe even colloquialisms that were used back in the day that have different meanings or have been completely lost to a modern language. But I will say a lot of this doesn't make any sense to me. The words will make you out and out. That doesn't mean any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me. Later on, verse 1 says, the music, dance, and sing, they make the children really ring. I kind of get the gist of it, but it feels so grammatically wrong. And it happens so often in this track, and I don't know if it's just part of the poetic way that he wrote, or again, if it's just how language was. So, most people don't speak grammatically correct all the time, and it could just be that this was a very, what do they call it? Informal way of writing some of these things. But again, like I said, it could be slang of the time as well. But the idea of being a roundabout, I think, is interesting. It's a way of allowing things to flow without stopping. It's a circular piece of road. You don't need a stoplight at a four-way, you just have a roundabout. You turn into it and you turn out where you need to go. And so, I kind of get the ideas of out and out, but you have to go in before you can go out. So, that's also confusing. He says, I'll spend the day your way. Call it morning, driving through the sound and in and out the valley. Again, it kind of feels like word salad at times, and I think I've had this problem with yes in the past, actually. The lyrics end up feeling a bit, I have to create a term for this, other than just saying very gong-like, where the sounds themselves work even if the words that are said might not make as much sense literally. But the chorus says, in and around the lake, mountains come out of the sky and they stand there. 1 mile over, we'll be there and we'll see you. 10 true summers will be there and laughing. 24 before my love, you'll see I'll be there with you. I think this is generally just about passing time, about driving around, and the distance between people. Maybe literally, but maybe also metaphorically. Verse 2 says, I'll remember you. Your silhouette will change the view of distant atmospheres. Again, distance between people. You don't need to remember somebody who is physically in front of you. You pull up the memory because they are not. And then pretty much everything after this is a repetition of something that has been said before. The refrain, the chorus, the last couple of lines from verse 1. I don't know what this song means. I really don't. It is very figurative in a way that goes over my head. But I mentioned that there were multiple things I wanted to dig into. One of the contexts in here is about this becoming a single. They were on the road and the record label cut a single without their knowledge or permission, bringing this from an 8.5-minute song to a 3.5-minute song. And I thought this was interesting. John Anderson writes, he said when he heard the edit on the radio while on the road to their next show, he thought, wow, that must have been a big pair of scissors to edit that song. I mean, it's true. They cut 5 whole minutes out of an 8.5 minute song. You cut over half of the track to turn it into a single. But he also said that it actually worked. He said it sounded musically wrong, which totally makes sense, right? You've put your heart and soul into this, and someone else edited out to, a little portion of it. So I'm sure it felt weird to them. He says, but we had a hit record and people came to see us. He says, despite it being wrong musically, it actually worked. And I think that kind of ties into a little bit about what I was talking about, that the middle kind of feels like fluff anyways. And I think it actually is. There is still musical storytelling in there. And I'm sure if you want to, I mean, looking at the lyrics, it seems to be about a trip. This, by creating a single version, kind of cuts out the journey and turns it into just the start and the destination, which feels wrong for sure. But on the other hand, as far as the music goes, as far as movement and growth and transition, there's a 4 minute gap in the middle that can be removed without really altering the momentum of the song in any way. And I think that's what I was talking about, where you kind of have to view the song as two parts. There is a jam session in the middle of a more traditionally structured track. And I think the record label heard that too, even if they didn't. And so I don't think the shorter version is better in any way. Like I said, you're cutting out the journey for just the destination. That's usually not something that works artistically, but from a capitalist product perspective, the 3 minute version probably works really well because they did write a standard song. They just put a jam session in the middle of it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That there actually does exist a cut down version of this. The last thing I want to touch on here real quick is, I know where I've heard this before. It's the to be continued meme. Apparently that comes from an anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and this song was actually used as the opening credits or end credits, I don't remember, to that show for a couple of seasons. And so I've seen that meme and I've heard this bass lick in those animated GIF files. So I think that's why I don't recognize anything else. I recognize just the bass lick because that's usually as long as the meme lasts. All right, so those are my thoughts. That's a weird place to have heard a song. Those are my thoughts on Yes's Roundabout. What did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you just want to, give me your own thoughts or opinions about this track, maybe your own interpretation. Please, if you have any insight into the lyrics, let me know. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Also, you can head into the description box, find the Linktree link, and check that out. You can find my music in there, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. That's going to wrap it up for today. I know I did this out of order. That's going to wrap it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We're going to check out an entire album. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.